You probably ate a healthy breakfast at some point in your life without realizing it was never just about breakfast, because the Kellogg family didn't just sell food, they shaped habits, reshaped culture, and helped build a billion-dollar industry around one simple idea: make the first meal of the day effortless. But if you think this story is only about cereal, you're missing what was driving it. Because behind the clean health image, this story starts in religion, moral reform, and a mission to control the body. And then it turns into a family war so bitter that both brothers carried it to the grave. The Kellogg family settled in Battle Creek, Michigan, in the mid-19th century, motivated by religious convictions. They were fervent Seventh-day Adventists and moved there in 1856 to be close to Ellen G. White, the prophetess and founder of the denomination. In that world, two brothers grew up to define the family's legacy: John Harvey Kellogg, born in 1852, and Will Keith Kellogg, born in 1860. John was recognized early for intelligence and dedication. The church sponsored his medical education so he could lead its health initiatives. Will, 8 years younger, was less academic, but had strong practical business sense. John became a renowned physician. In 1876, at just 24, he took over an Adventist health institute that evolved into the Battle Creek Sanitarium, part hospital, part spa, part health resort, attracting thousands each year, including prominent figures and even presidents. He wrote health bestsellers and edited a widely circulated medical journal. Will worked for decades as the sanitarium's right-hand administrator, essentially running operations, logistics, and staff, while John focused on patients and preaching his health ideas. That partnership created success, and it created tension. Because the cereals that would become famous were born inside a specific ideological world. Adventists preached biologic living, a vegetarian diet based on whole grains, exercise, abstinence from alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine, and a strong emphasis on chastity. Ellen G. White taught that meat, fatty foods, spicy seasonings, and stimulants could corrupt body and soul, and that excesses awakened immoral passions, leading to sexual vices like masturbation, treated as a destructive evil. John Harvey absorbed that fully. He wanted pure, simple foods that promoted health and restrained impulses he considered sinful. In the Battle Creek Sanitarium kitchen, he began inventing digestible breakfast foods for patients. He was inspired by James Caleb Jackson, who created a baked cereal called Granula in 1863. Kellogg made his own version, initially called it Granula, then had to rename it Granola after a trademark lawsuit. With Will and other assistants, he experimented with whole grain pastes baked until dry and brittle. He believed high-temperature cooking pre-digested starch, making it easier to absorb. After trial and error, they produced wheat flakes, then discovered corn made even tastier flakes. Corn flakes were born, roasted corn flakes, first served as therapeutic food for digestive problems, with milk at breakfast. But John saw them as more than nutrition. He believed bland, unseasoned food reduced sexual desire, supporting purity. So the first cereals carried a double purpose: easing Victorian-era digestive troubles and fighting masturbation through healthy, insipid food. John didn't want mass commercialization. He saw it as a health mission. Will saw a larger audience beyond patients, a practical, nutritious breakfast for everyday people. He noticed the flakes were pleasing, especially after adding a pinch of sugar and salt to make them more palatable. In 1906, Will had enough of living in his brother's shadow and founded the company that would become Kellogg's, initially the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company. John felt betrayed by the commercialization of his reform food, and the brotherhood cracked. Their relationship had long been strained. John was domineering and treated Will like a subordinate, paying meager wages, humiliating him, ridiculing him in front of staff and patients. Accounts describe John biking across the sanitarium grounds while Will ran behind taking notes, a symbol of the unequal dynamic. When Will launched his cereal business and used the Kellogg name, John was furious. He launched competing cereals and fought Will legally for the right to use the surname in the food market. The battle dragged through lawsuits and counter-lawsuits to the Michigan Supreme Court.
John argued he embodied the Kellogg name as a famous physician and guru of digestion.
Will argued he invested heavily in advertising and built the consumer association between the name and cornflakes.
In 1920, the court sided with Will. He could use Kellogg on cereal boxes, while John could only identify himself discreetly on the back without causing confusion.
After that, they practically stopped speaking. The family became divided and toxic. John and his wife Ella adopted 42 children, never had biological children, and are believed never to have consummated their marriage, consistent with John's ideal of celibacy. Attempts at reconciliation failed. Their last meeting ended in a heated argument. John died in 1943. Will died in 1951. They never reconciled. While they fought, cereal was already reshaping breakfast. In the late 1800s, American breakfast was heavy and labor-intensive. Salted meats, fried potatoes, eggs, dense breads, long-cooked porridges, coffee or milk. Preparation required waking before dawn to light stoves and cook for hours. Digestive problems like dyspepsia were so common they were called the Great American Ailment. Cereal changed that. Toasted grains, ready to eat, just pour and add milk. After 1906, adoption was rapid. Train cars of cereal boxes left Battle Creek daily. Even the least skilled father could cook breakfast by opening a box. A historian called cereals one of the great modern inventions of the early 20th century, simplifying mornings for millions. Will marketed cornflakes as a healthier alternative to fatty Victorian breakfasts, especially to mothers. In 1909, he introduced prizes inside boxes, like a coloring booklet, pulling cereal into childhood culture. The success created an entire industry. Battle Creek became Cereal City, with dozens of manufacturers, at one point over 100 cereal companies competing. C.W. Post, a former sanitarium patient, launched Grape Nuts in 1897, a wheat and barley cereal containing neither grapes nor nuts. The cereal war of the 1900s made cereal a staple. Will expanded with Rice Krispies in the late 1920s, Snap, Crackle and Pop. Other companies introduced Wheaties in 1921 and Cheerios in the 1940s. Cereal became permanent, and it went global as Kellogg's built factories beyond the US, carrying the habit into Latin America, Europe, Oceania, and Asia. Economically, cereal became a multi-billion-dollar sector, with Kellogg's positioned for decades as world leader. But ideology remained central to the story. Adventist teachings shaped the family's health message, body care as spiritual duty, prohibitions on stimulants and exciting foods, and belief that appetite led to moral decline. John's biologic living fused diet, discipline and repression of desire. He also joined progressive-era reform movements like the social gospel. In 1893, he founded a Chicago urban branch offering baths, food and education to the poor. Yet John's legacy includes darker affiliations. He became deeply involved in eugenics. In 1914, he founded the Race Betterment Foundation in Battle Creek, promoting racial hygiene, encouraging reproduction among those deemed genetically good, and discouraging it among those labeled degenerate. He organized eugenics conferences and hosted a race betterment conference at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco in 1915, alongside figures like Charles Davenport. Today, these ideas are recognized as prejudice and racial pseudoscience. And then there were the controversies that shocked even in their own time. John's anti-masturbation obsession led him to recommend harsh procedures, circumcision without anesthesia as deterrence, and application of carbolic acid to girls' clitorises to destroy sensitivity. He promoted intense sanitarium practices like continuous baths, electrical motion devices, and frequent enemas. He recommended irrigating the colon with up to 15 liters of water, then using yogurt orally and by enema to repopulate flora. He insisted on at least 4 bowel movements a day, even admiring monkeys' patterns and trying to replicate them in humans. Some dietary ideas were sound, but many treatments later looked like quackery or abuse and became targets of satire like the Road to Wellville. Will faced his own controversies. He expanded through aggressive competition, sometimes copying others' inventions. He stole the shredded wheat recipe for Kellogg's shredded wheat, leading to lawsuits. He commercially exploited ideas from John's lab with small changes to bypass registrations, producing products like All Bran. Marketing drew criticism too, especially targeting children. Prizes in boxes began in 1909. Later, cartoon mascots became central. Tony the Tiger for Frosted Flakes in the 1950s. As mascots rose, sugar rose. From the 1940s-50s onward, cereals became heavily sweetened: Sugar Corn Pops, Honey Smacks, Frosted Flakes. John deplored this shift as corruption of temperance food. Later leadership embraced colorful packaging, cartoons, and prime shelf placement. Nutritionists and health authorities criticized the sugar impact on children. In the UK, regulators banned Kellogg's cereal commercials aimed at children for violating healthy eating standards, and the company unsuccessfully appealed. So what is the modern legacy? Kellogg's, founded in 1906, grew into one of the world's largest food companies. The name evokes far more than cornflakes, cookies, cereal bars, frozen foods, and snacks. Over the 20th century, it expanded into brands like Pringles, Pop-Tarts, and Eggo waffles. For decades, it was the world's largest cereal manufacturer. Today it's present in more than 180 countries, employing tens of thousands, with mascots and slogans embedded in pop culture. And as health expectations changed, it launched lines with whole grains, organic ingredients, and reduced sugar, a market-driven return to health roots. Beyond business, Will left a major philanthropic legacy. In 1930, he created the W.K. Kellogg Foundation for Child Well-Being, Education, and Public Health. He endowed it with millions in company shares. It has funded programs worldwide in nutrition, sustainable agriculture, racial equity, and child development. Today it remains one of the world's largest private foundations, with an endowment around $9 billion still active nearly a century later. John left institutions too, including a medical school, the Battle Creek College of Medicine, and influence on the Adventist health movement. But his legacy is also marked by eugenics and ethically condemnable therapeutic abuses. So the Kellogg family's impact is impossible to reduce to a cereal box. They transformed breakfast. They created an industry. They spread health ideals mixed with moralism. They shaped childhood marketing and mass consumer culture. They left philanthropy that still operates today. And they left controversies that still force uncomfortable questions about pseudoscience, ethics, and profit. More than a century after the first bowl of cornflakes was served in Battle Creek, the world still feels the effects every time someone pours cereal into a bowl. The Kellogg family, light and shadow together, remains a symbol of how food ideas can reshape society, from daily habits to moral debates that span generations. They transformed breakfast, they created an industry, they spread health ideals mixed with moralism, they shaped childhood marketing and mass consumer culture, they left philanthropy that still operates today, and they left controversies that still force uncomfortable questions about pseudoscience, ethics, and profit.